morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Good morning, and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 409 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on
509.
509. Did I say 905?
409.
409. Oh my god, I got everything wrong. 509. So sorry, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Skidoo-skidoo-boo-boo. Yeah. Today, recording date. It's Friday. Of course it is. That's why I'm so cheerful. October. I'm all over the place. November 8th, 2024. And it is a very, 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 very gray and overcast day here at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. And you know what the worst part of making that mistake was? Before I literally said 409, I said 509 in my head. As the countdown was going on, it's okay, what show is this? And I still got it wrong. There you go. I need more hot chocolate. Please donate generously. All right. Today, we are going to try to do something interesting, kids and cubs. We're going to try to have an episode where we do not talk at all about Agent Orange. Because
Yeah.
I'm not pressed. So
Yeah, I have
today.
nothing more to say about him, to be honest with you.
Right.
At least not today. I'm getting some feedback from you, sir. Your speakers, you got to turn your speaker volume down. I can hear myself.
There's nothing else on, but hold on.
No. The speaker on your... I hear my voice feeding back through your mic.
Oh,
so
okay. Hold on.
Just turn your volume down a little bit.
Is that better?
No, I still hear it. It's weird.
Now?
Still there.
Okay. I'm almost down to 0 now.
Yeah, don't worry about it then.
Okay, sorry. All right, kids and cubs. I'm not hearing anything at my end.
No. It's my... Of course you wouldn't hear it. You're hearing... Okay. What I'm hearing is when I speak, you hear my voice through your speakers. Your microphone is picking it up and feeding it back to me. Oh, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing my own voice.
Interesting. Okay. All right, kids and cubs. One of the big bits of news yesterday is that Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet actually came back to us after having reading the report. But you would not know that he had. Because it seemed to have made no news whatsoever. I saw it on Twitter. I've listened to every newscast on the hour. There was no mention of it. I listened to the half-hour newscast. There was no mention of it. I couldn't find a damn thing about it. So I went over onto the old YouTube to look at the clip of him speaking. One of the reasons for which it probably didn't get any attention is that he did his entire initial address in French. no English whatsoever. And there were two issues going on. There was he had read the report, but also it seems that the Senate did some, according to the Bloc Québécois leader, some pretty underhanded things with regard to the legislation on supply management that was in the Senate. We'll get back to that eventually here. But most people wanted to talk about that. So he actually delivered his statement about the actual report and nothing else. And well, you can't say too much. So we were the first journalist that took up the question and said, well, since you can't talk much about it, let's talk about supply management. And not one single journalist, not one, in about 30 minutes of time asked a single question about Pierre or the report. Nobody was interested in the subject.
Interesting. Wonder why that is.
So if we're wondering if our media is getting together to give him another free pass yet again, it would seem so.
Certainly looks like it anyway.
Yeah. Now, since it was all in French, I took it upon myself, since I do have those skills, to translate the main portion that he said before the question and answers started. I didn't bother to do the translation of what happened in the question and answers because they didn't ask a question about this, even though there was some interesting content about supply management and all that kind of stuff. But Monsieur Blanchet came up to the podium yesterday and wasn't particularly enthusiastic, but was it really showed like, I have to do this, so let's do it. It was kind of the overall sort of prevailing attitude and mood behind his comments, and him knowing that he wouldn't be able to reveal all that much. I guess he kind of took that attitude and sort of infused it into the press thing. So, because Monsieur Blanchet has this incredible, I think pithy might be the word for it. I might be using it wrong, but way of presenting things. So he came up to the podium and basically said, "Well, the suspense is over. For the rest of this, I shall be totally boring because I have now familiarized myself with the now infamous report. So right away, I'm going to be boring." Still, it starts it off with that. "Firstly, you can't read this thing in just an hour, so I would not believe people that said I took an hour to read it, and here are my conclusions, because this is not a light pre-bedtime read. It's not exactly the document that you would leave by your bedside table. Right? So it's not a light read, right? You can't just go in and look at it for 1 hour, say, okay, I've seen it, and here's what I have to say. It is substantial and dense, and to my mind, it is rather well done, but I'm not an expert in these matters. So, of course, I will have to eventually go back and consult it some more, because I would like to be able to perform a more in-depth analysis of its content. And I also have some questions that I would like to ask, and they most likely will need time to get back to me on those. That said, related to the matters that are of interest to us and of which I can speak, which is pretty much nothing, I can confirm that there are things that seem to me to have been things that have been said publicly that are contrary to the spirit of the documents that we signed before being able to see the report." So Blanchet is saying that based on his short perusal of the report, and he does need to go back, that those who have seen it so far, who have made comments, have made some comments that might go beyond that which, according to him, he claims he's been told he's allowed to say or not say. So that's kind of an interesting bit here. Goes on, says, "We are not to suggest either by positive or negative information or inference that which is in the report. The report lays out that which we could reasonably expect a report from an intelligence agency that is substantive and well-written. Once again, in my opinion, it eliminates the difference because interference, and when we say interference, we mean spying, it is squarely spying activities that have the objective to gain information certainly, but also to be able to influence decisions, which has always been the case ever since before the Cold War." So I guess he started a sentence but didn't actually finish it. So if I was to guess there, he was finishing by the full thought in that sentence, and this one is just speculation because nobody asked him about it, is that, how would I put it? By going outside the bounds of what the report, what he's been told he's allowed to say or not, it blurs the line between interference and influence.
Hmm.
Right? Everybody's trying to have influence. It's the interference part that's the problem. And I'm guessing by pointing that out, that he is suggesting that that's not something that should not be done, because I would suggest that the interference part is is substantive enough to not require the waters being muddied, or having the muddied water not being helpful to being able to deal with the first issue. The report here, clearly establishes that the Bloc Québécois is in no way whatsoever implicated in the matters of foreign interference, either as a witting or unwitting accomplice or a target. It further establishes without any equivocation that all party leaders have some thinking to do as to how to ensure that their caucus or not virtual candidates, but prospective candidates have not been either wittingly or not at the service of foreign nations. So once again, I noticed that the Bloc Québécois leader does what Jagmeet Singh did. We can't say anything, but I can tell you we're not involved in any way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which would seem to me to be probably one of those things that goes beyond the scope of that you probably should not be able to say. One of the
Wasn't
others that
me,
he just admonished.
basically. Yeah,
But
basically wasn't me.
So we got that part, that little bit of information did get out. So that was important for him to get out. Evidently, this comes with knowledge of that which the report contains, and again, given he, Pierre, is the only one, I will allow myself to point out Mr. Poilievre cannot take the dispositions required without having he himself received his security accreditation and familiarized himself with the report. So I will repeat that again, because Mr. Blanchet only had something to say about one person specifically with a name.
Mm-hmm.
I will allow myself to point out that Mr. Poilievre cannot take the dispositions required without having he himself received his security accreditation and familiarized himself with the report. So all the leaders seem to be unanimous that Pierre has some work to do, that he should be doing, and that he cannot possibly do if he does not go and get his clearance. This seems to be a unanimous conclusion among all party leaders. I can't say opposition party leaders because one of them is the government as well. The rest is obviously collection of information that will obviously remain classified and must not be made public. I am sorry that I'm not able to be more distracting, was how he ended it. And then they asked him about supply management and all that kind of stuff. Now, the big news that he did somehow let slip while he was answering all the other questions that nobody picked up upon, it seems that his October 29th deadline to get an answer from the Liberals as to whether or not they're going to do that thing with OAS and that thing with supply management is not really all that firm. It seemed to hint in those answers that, well, I mean, we haven't made the government fall yet, so if we do get what we want, maybe. But then again, a journalist was asking him, well, I mean, you were only giving him an extra few weeks, and if it takes more time, and you're still giving them the same time, and what's in it for the Liberals, being able to live for 6 weeks more, or now 3 weeks more? Like, what's in it for them? Why would they? And he would not answer that in any way, shape, or form. Just listen, this is our position. That's the deal. Dig it or leave it. So Blanchette is trying very, 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 very hard here, as I mentioned again, trying to place people in very uncomfortable positions. Problem is that Blanchet is now being put in an uncomfortable position, and we'll get to that too a little bit. He also says that it's ridiculous for anyone to imply that the Bloc how can I put this? Can be not exactly sure how to formulate this thought. Let me ponder that one, and I'll get back to you, because I don't want to say something that
tell and tale out of turn.
Well, that could imply that someone does not have proper motive when that's not what I'm trying to do. But the words that I'm thinking of have an edge to it that make it seem that something underhanded is going on, and I don't want to put that forward. So yeah, not a single question was asked about what he had to say about interference. Everything was asked about supply management and a little bit about immigration because everybody's worried in the United States now that so and so has come in, whether or not that's going to lead to a mass immigration problem on the U.S. Quebec border. So those were the questions he was asked about. Um, Following this, and it didn't take too long, um, Elizabeth May had something to say. She put out an official comment. And um, interestingly enough, because the Bloc Québécois leader has a lot of respect for Elizabeth May.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have time for many people, but he has a lot of time for her. And I think she quite likes him as well. So this was a bit of a surprise, but in one way, but in another way, it isn't, because that which we know to be true of Elizabeth May is that she'll just say the thing. And you can count on her to say the thing. It can be popular, it can be unpopular, but if that's what the situation is and that's what the deal is, she'll just outright and say it. So the Green Party of Canada put out a statement yesterday. Yesterday's announcement from the Bloc Québécois reveals a concerning disregard for Canadian interests and democracy. As we await a crucial report on foreign interference in Canadian politics, the Bloc's threat to force an election before the Canadians have access to the truth prioritizes political gains over national interests. The Green Party believes that Canadians deserve to be fully informed about foreign interference before the next election to ensure the integrity and transparency of our democracy. We will continue to uphold these values by ensuring Canadians have full access to the information they need to participate in our democracy. So that was a clever little move from Elizabeth May over here, because yesterday during the press conference, the Bloc Québécois leader made it very, 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 very clear that it would be a mistake for anyone to suggest that the Bloc Québécois is propping up the Liberals. But they are.
Mm-hmm.
They blew their confidence motion, the one that they could use before Christmas, on something, on a motion to just get people to say that we as the House support the measures that the Bloc Québécois asked the Liberals to put in place by October 29th. They already asked the Liberals to do it. The Liberals do it or they don't. They don't need a motion from the rest of the parties to be able to bolster that or give that a little more energy on the line. So they've completely squandered it. The Conservatives squandered theirs. For the most part, I think they got two left, and the NDP hasn't used theirs yet. So the Bloc Québécois can't call the confidence motion. They say that they will vote for the first one that comes along, but they won't vote for it if it comes from the Conservatives and has any mention of climate change or something about secularism or language or whatnot. It has to be clean resolution, so there are more exceptions to get out. His October 29th deadline may not be as firm as it was. He's just suggested in this press conference, though nobody picked up on it and asked him about that. So that's kind of interesting. And he's still saying that he is willing to make the government fall at the first opportunity. But this foreign interference thing is very, very, very important. So Miss May noticed that and said, wait a minute, Mr. Blanchet. If you are now in a position to bring down the government at the first opportunity and say that you will vote against it, where are you on foreign interference then?
Mm-hmm.
So Elizabeth May is, I don't know if she ordered like Costco level, family size levels of body bags over Amazon over the last month or so. But she keeps on popping up to point out, yeah, clever little move you did there, buddy, but you forgot this. And she's doing it to everyone. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. So, go Liz. We support this. We very, very much support this. We very much support colleagues in Parliament speaking truth about other colleagues in Parliament, especially if the subject matter is our national security. We are all for it. So, Elizabeth May, keep on doing what you do, please. Now, supply management. It would seem that we have a few shenanigans going on in Parliament, particularly in the Senate. Now, the Bloc Québécois leader seems to want to blame Liberal senators in the Senate
Mm,
for that, but there are technically no Liberal senators, so I'm not exactly sure how this argument of his is working.
I don't know.
But according to the CBC here, this is from Janice McGregor, senators on the Foreign Affairs Committee amended a controversial agricultural trade bill Wednesday, putting it on a path back to the House of Commons. And sorry, just a little aside here, speaking about amendments, the Conservatives yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think it is, re-amended once again their parliamentary motion of privilege, so the hijacking of Parliament so that no subject matter gets discussed other than this continues. The Bloc Québécois in the press conference suggested yesterday, said, my phone number hasn't changed. So if somebody did want to take the supply management bill that is probably coming back to the House from the Senate to actually be discussed, he's perfectly willing to help the Liberals override the motion of privilege, at least temporarily enough to be able to get the supply management bill through. So, but I noticed that Mr. Blanchet isn't picking up the same damn phone to say, hey, let's make this happen. My phone number hasn't changed. The Liberals could call me. That's very, very passive aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. The private members' bill proposed by Bloc Québécois MP Luc Thériault, C-282, would prohibit Canadian trade negotiators from making future concessions, opening up protected dairy, egg, and poultry markets. And the government of Quebec really wants this passed now that so-and-so has been elected leader of the United States, because the dairy farmers in the Midwest really want supply management gone so that they can flood Canadian markets with American milk that has, all the hormone type stuff in it that we don't allow in our milk here. So just that is going on. There is constant and sustained pressure from the United States to get us to ditch that policy. As American dairy farmers continue to agitate against Canada, the Bloc's bill is meant to protect Canada's industry from any more financial losses. But with U.S. President-elect Trump heading back to the White House, standing up for these farmers risks a trade war capable of inflicting economic harm far beyond these farm commodities, as I just said. Quote, it is not a bill about supply management, but rather about trade policy, Senator Peter Harder told the committee as he moved the successful amendment. I believe we need to de-risk this bill. Thériault and the Bloc's agricultural critic Yves Perron responded Thursday by accusing senators of sabotaging the bill. They said it's now clear that members of the committee were biased and intended to kill this bill, not improve it with their review. This amendment would nullify the intent of the bill, which they said is unacceptable, especially in the context of the results of this week's U.S. election, which they believe put Quebec's agricultural model in jeopardy. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet lashed out at senators, accusing them of putting, quote, a knife in the back of their own population for the sake of other countries when they should be focused on protecting fair prices, quality, and safety for domestic consumers. Quote, I am optimistic about how the Senate will deal with those odious proposals. I am quite confident that the amendment will be beaten and the original version of the bill will be adopted by the Senate, and that will be the end of it, not for the sake of any political issue, but for the sake of people who need this feeling of safety for the business they manage on a daily basis, Blanchet told reporters. It seems that Blanchet's optimism was not properly placed because it seems, from what I can tell, that the bill is going back to the House of Commons and was not just approved in the Senate. It is rare, but not impossible, for the Senate to reject a report from one of its own committees. At an event in Toronto, International Trade Minister Mary Ng said the government had only just seen this amendment, but it stands by the legislation that passed in the Commons and will continue to protect supply-managed sectors. In French, Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly said the government will study the amendment and then take a position on it. A small share of market access for foreign competitors was the final card Canada had to play over the last decade to land major trade deals with the European Union and Pacific Rim trading partners, and it was a critical factor in efforts to placate Trump during the 2018 renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement. If I'm not mistaken, I think Canada offered the United States the same things it had offered the EU and the CPTPP countries when they negotiated that, but nothing more. But don't take that one to the bank for me. That's just from recollection and memory. I haven't re-looked at the fact on that. Harder's amendment neuters C-282 by making its prohibition on new concessions inapplicable to pre-existing trade agreements like the revised NAFTA, and a renegotiation of an existing deal like the upcoming review of the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, or a treaty negotiation that's already underway when this bill comes into force, such as Canada's ongoing talks with the UK, where access to the cheese market is a sticking point. The amendment was approved by the committee in a vote of 10 to 3. Mark Gold, the Liberal government's representative in the Senate, participated in the committee's review of the legislation and voted against it, consistent with Ng's recent letter to senators urging them to pass the bill quickly. So it seems that the federal government is on the same side as the Bloc Québécois on this and wanting to pass the bill quickly without any more amendments. So that the Bloc Québécois leader is suggesting that liberals are the ones that are, at least in the Senate, trying to stall it, is a little inconsistent, at least with the federal government's position on that. There were more than enough independent senators around the table who shared Harder's concerns and backed the amendment. Quote, while the committee respects the will of the House, the committee does not agree that this bill represents sound public policy, said Senator Marty Deacon, amplifying concerns expressed by many of the 52 different witnesses who testified before the senators this fall. 4 more people than the Commons Trade Committee consulted when it approved 282. So basically, the senators decided that they were bringing in way more witnesses and doing a way more in-depth investigation than the Commons Committee did, which the Senate can do. And that's one of the reasons why the Senate has value, because, for example, if some parties are trying to pass things through with minimal vetting, the Senate could turn around and go, yeah, you guys didn't look into this well enough. We'll do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So that's one of the good services that our Senate does provide, especially with sober second thought. And since they don't have to be elected, they can actually speak truth to power when they do that. In addition to Harder's amendment, the committee is adding an observation to the bill when it reports back to the full Senate for its final votes to make it explicit that this move should not be interpreted as a lack of support for farmers. Interesting. Conservative senators noted there were only 4 senators casting votes who were not appointed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and suggested the Liberals were undermining this bill through the back door of the Senate because they did not have the political will to vote against it in the House. So that's what they're claiming, because the majority of the senators have been appointed by Trudeau. Therefore, it's Trudeau's fault if the senators that he appointed don't do the thing, which is just silly.
Mm-hmm.
Just so. The committee, quote, wishes to make clear that it has taken no view on supply management in Canada and has focused its decisions on this legislation's impact on Canada's crucial trade relationships as an export-oriented nation reliant on trade, the observation says. So basically, it's not that we don't support farmers, it's that this could have far more and far greater unforeseen impacts on the trade relationship, and we need to study that more before going ahead. Is how they're trying to frame this. The legislation passed the House of Commons with broad support from all 4 political parties. Only a few Liberals and a few dozen Conservatives voted against it. But as with any private member's bill, the road to passage is slow, particularly in the Senate where non-government bills are not prioritized for debate. Earlier this fall, in an effort to hurry up legislation that resonates with the Bloc's rural base, Blanchet made its passage one of 2 conditions the Liberals needed to meet by October 29th in order for the Bloc to continue to vote against motions of non-confidence in the House. When that deadline wasn't met last month, Blanchet announced that the Bloc would work to defeat Trudeau's government. And that paragraph contains an important piece of information here. It says, in an effort to hurry up legislation that resonates with the Bloc's rural base. That's why the Bloc has put it in, right? Because the Bloc dominates in rural Quebec, but they are being challenged a little bit by other parties, so they want to secure that, so they're going for supply management. And then the OAS thing is because, well, separation, the concept of separation, is supported principally by older Quebecers, a lot of them who have now reached the retirement age, because the first referendum on separation was in 1980. So we're talking 40-something years ago. So when they were young, idealistic 20-something-year-olds or 30-year-olds back in the day when they voted we in 1980, well, now they're 70-something-year-olds, and or before 70, and they would love that extra 10% top up to the OAS. So
yeah, they're seeing things differently now, right?
These 2 subjects that Blanchet picked are not accidental. They directly relate to core constituencies with which he is trying to curry favor in the province of Quebec. Because Blanchet, I mean, he had the government by the short and curlies. He could have asked them for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Quebec has aspirations much greater than an extra 10% contribution to OAS for people 65 to 74 and supply management being protected. But he didn't ask for any of those things.
I don't see this going through.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, is he trying to prop up the liberals? Because, I mean, it seems to me that if he wasn't trying to prop up the liberals, he would ask for something big, like, for example, federal government sanctioning of their secularism policy, for example, which he knows the federal government can't do.
Right. Well,
but didn't ask for those things.
So
that's why people are wondering, like, this. Well, are you actually trying to prop him up because you spoiled your confidence motion thing, and there's lots of exceptions to a bill that you absolutely will support to take down the government at the first opportunity, but not like that, and not like this, and not like that. And now there's this to go along with it as well. You certainly didn't nail him to a corner.
Well, and what did he read in the report, right? What did he see that he made him go, oh, maybe we'll, okay, this is different now.
So his public facade is still that he's willing to go now. But all the little moves that he's making behind the scenes kind of seem to indicate, no, maybe we should let this parliament last for a while and see what happens to that little fucker Poilievre. Which I am perfectly fine with.
I want to address a comment in the chat that I saw earlier, and I'm going to start it by showing you the clip that they were referring to. It's the Is Up. This is from This Hour Has 22 Minutes. The Is Up sketch. And we'll address that, and then I'm going somewhere with this, so just bear with me. Here's the Is sketch from This Hour Has 22 Minutes.
Parliament was back in session this week, and Pierre Poilievre came out rhyming. Check out the Conservatives' newest chart topper.
After 9 years, the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time's up.
Taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up.
Taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, and time's up, Mr. Speaker.
Taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up.
Damn! I thought Eminem was white.
Yeah, Poilievre's like vanilla ice. Let's take a look at how that tasty earworm of a catchphrase came to be.
Okay, caucus. We gotta change that word, far too sexual. In the meantime, I've come up with a brand new catchphrase for us to say like fascist sitcom characters. We can repeat it and repeat it. Say it with me. Taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up. Excellent, I love it. Ooh, no notes. All right, let's commit it to memory. Let's practice. You, go.
Taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up.
Yes, excellent. Now, faster, you.
Tax up, cax up, time's up, jime's up.
Really bad. You, go.
Push up, press up, Mr. Dress Up.
Completely wrong. You, go.
Okay, should we maybe discuss the issues instead of parroting incel nursery rhymes?
Absolutely not. Now go, faster.
Bicep, tricep, twerk off, jerk off.
What was that?
I don't know, I'm freaking out here, man.
You, go.
Backstab, 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 backstab.
That is very unsettling. We're going to talk about that later. You, go.
Backs up, cracks up, jacks up, max up.
It's not backs up, cracks up, jacks up, max up.
Pretty sure it is.
Meth lab, cash cab, back lab, black lab.
Sun's out, guns out, bugs out, drugs out.
What is wrong with you people?
It's a tongue twister.
It's not a tongue twister.
Okay, well, fine, you say it.
I will say it. It is Jack Black, Fat Stack, Kneecap, Prozac.
See?
No, nothing to see. Rat Trap, Kneecap, Ass Slap, Jock Strap. Ugh, come on, Pierre. Get it together, get it together. It is taxes up, costs up, time's up, crime's up. Yes, nailed it. Did I? Yes, I nailed it. Yes, round of applause. Applaud me.
I'm sorry, but we sound like a cult in a Dr. Seuss book.
No, we don't. We sound cool as hell. It's a perfect little phrase. Now let's do it again. Taxes, it's time's up at the end.
Okay, so here's the reason I showed you that, because A, yes, it's very funny, and it's prescient, and it has a point. But the reason I showed you that is because the Liberals have decided to fight fire with fire. They're doing it a little bit more subtly, and it's specifically coming from the Prime Minister. In the House of Commons just the other day, every time he was asked a question, he responded, and he ended it. Well, just watch this. This is 54 seconds. It starts with Pierre Poilievre, and then it goes to the Prime Minister, and here we go. Whoops. That helps if I share the actual image. I find if I put it on the screen, it's easier to see.
We understand why Donald Trump wants to take Canadian jobs, but why does this Prime Minister want to help him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we successfully renegotiated NAFTA and protected Canadian jobs, protected steel workers and aluminum workers, protected our supply managed sectors and agricultural workers, protected Canadians from one coast to coast to the coast, from coast to coast to coast, the leader of the Conservative Party at the time referred to our approach as dumb, Mr. Speaker. Successfully standing up for Canadians is not dumb. But you know what is dumb, Mr. Speaker? Refusing to get your security clearance so you can actually protect members of your caucus, so you can protect Canadians, get the briefings necessary on national security.
So that happened yesterday. And every time he got up to respond,
and again,
he hammered that home, that same message. Get your clearance, get your clearance, get your clearance. Which is interesting because yesterday Pierre Poilievre tweeted this, and I'm going somewhere with this, so hang on to the boat. Grab onto the gunnels and hold tight. So National Post, a company that belonged to Federal Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault, said it was Indigenous-owned while bidding on federal contracts. Pierre Poilievre says, this man is a total fraud, start to finish, and he is the Liberal Employment Minister. Well, that's slanderous to begin with. And then our friend David Wallace says, really, Jeff?
Yes.
Let's talk about the dead intern or the mail-order wife with the money-laundering uncle who washes cash for the FARC. Then we can talk about good old dad, Jerry Berry. When you live in a glass house, don't throw rocks. To which I responded, mayhaps why he refuses to get his security clearance. I'm just asking questions. It's all related. I think Michael Chong kind of spelled it out for us. Well, they might use that information of a sexual nature. What? He can't get his clearance, which is why he refuses it, because he knows that.
Yes. And he knows that he's going to get it by right if he wins the prime ministership.
Exactly. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, he's literally doing the same thing on security clearance that Trump did on revealing his taxes in the States.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Liberals, the Bloc, the Greens, and the NDP need to get together and pass a law. Don't berate, legislate, make it law. That leaders of political parties that have a seat in the House of Commons must get their security clearance, or they can't be party leaders.
That needs to be law.
Make it such that the prime minister, and make it law now that the prime minister no longer gets security clearance by right, just by virtue of the fact of being the prime minister. All leaders of the party need to qualify it for their own, on their own, under the supervised system that we have with national intelligence oversight.
It needs to happen. It has to happen.
And if they can't get it that way, they can't get it at all. There cannot be
exactly, because here's the thing, like right now, we potentially have, as the leader of the loyal opposition, we potentially have a compromised individual by a foreign government because he refuses to get his clearance. He has an excuse, but it's a bullshit excuse. The excuse has been debunked 100 times by people much smarter and in much higher positions of power and authority than I. He refuses to get it because he's compromised. We know this. We know he's compromised. Why would you continue to refuse? We know he's compromised. To what level? We don't know. But it needs to be put into law that in the future, and including right now, effective as of, let's say, January 1st, 2025, you have to pass a security clearance if you are a party leader, period. And if you're a prime minister, you don't get it automatically. You need to pass because that's a check and a balance there that makes sure that the person that is in that position of power is not compromised. That's the only way to do it. Keep them honest.
You got to close
it's a loophole that cannot be there anymore. It really can't because it jeopardizes our security of the nation. It jeopardizes our security relationships with the Five Eyes, with NATO, with every trading partner. Who's going to trust us if the leader of the party that wants to be the next prime minister refuses to get his security clearance? Yeah. I can't refuse to get my clearance and get a job in any government agency or walk into a government building for that matter. I need to have minimum, I have level 2 secret. I'm not top secret. I took I filled out all the forms, and by the way, I filled out more forms to try and get a $750 welfare check than I did. I had more. Let me start that over again. I had to answer more personal, deeply probing questions to get a $750 welfare check that I never got because I didn't need it because I got a job in time and I had friends help me out. But I answered more questions to get a $750 check from the province of Ontario than I did to get top secret clearance to work at a project at the RCMP HQ. So first off, I'm citing two things here. One, I can get my clearance, and I will happily get it if I need it. I already have my secret level 2. If I need top secret, I'll go and get it. First thing. Second thing is we punch down on people who are poor and in positions of vulnerability. When they need help, we run them through the ringer on asking questions about their personal and private lives just to get $730. What am I saying? $730. And that $730 was in 2012, and it's still the same amount today in 2024. But, cost of living hasn't gone up or anything, right? Haven't gone up. Nothing's gone up.
Yeah.
He needs to get his clearance or he needs to be removed. Period. End of story. End of story.
Yeah.
You can't be.
Yeah. We can no longer rely on. Yeah. We can no longer rely on the honors.
No.
It's trust but verified.
Well, and this is why we need to start looking at parliamentary privilege, because they abuse the hell out of it daily. Telling bald-faced lies in the House, knowing that they're lying. They know they are. Parliamentary privilege. No, we got to change the rule around that because that's become a loophole. Parliamentary privilege was meant so that if you said something in the House and you didn't have the correct information in front of you at the time, a long time ago, remember, before we had 24-hour access to all of the human knowledge, these little things, all human knowledge right here, access to it. So it was meant so that if you made a mistake because you didn't have the correct information at the time, you couldn't be held in contempt. But now you can spot check and fact check right there while you're sitting there in the House. So that parliamentary privilege, that needs to be reined in because they lie to you daily in the People's House, the House of Commons. We're the common people, right? The House of Commons. Not for royals, for commoners. That's what the House of Commons is. So it's got to change. It's got to change.
I hear you.
I don't know how we can go about doing that other than writing to our member of parliament and saying, listen, here's a problem. This needs to change, and it needs to change now.
Just saw a compliment from
I saw that. I got to grab a coffee. I'll be right back.
Yes. So thank you for the compliment. Compliments about how gorgeous my face is will get you everywhere. Allegedly gorgeous my face is. I will not claim it myself because then that's just bragging and it's unattractive. But if you all say it, that's quite fine. Now, going back to the article that I was reading for you here with regard to the supply management. Even if MPs get back to legislating at some point because they have to get over the filibuster, and that's what the comment that was there was a comment in the chat as well with regard to making this law with regard to security clearances. That one, I think they will have no problem getting over the filibuster if somebody actually proposes it, because again, the Bloc leader and the NDP leader and the Green leader all seem to agree that he should have it. So it wouldn't be very hard to get either one of the Bloc or the NDP to say the Liberals, yeah, for the next, 3 hours that will take us to pass this, or 2 days, we're going to suspend the privileged motion, and then they can get back to it so that we can do this one thing. The mechanism does exist. They just have to have a majority. It has to be done on case by case for the bill, and there has to be the majority of the House that agrees to suspend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other question where we're asking: does the Bloc Québécois really want to get rid of the Liberals? Because if they really want to get rid of the Liberals, well then they would stop the filibuster so that they could get back to the work of actually making sure that they get rid of the Liberals.
Well, and
but they're not.
Blanchette, no, sorry. He does not like Pierre Poilievre.
Not at all.
He doesn't like him.
He doesn't like much like Jagmeet Singh either.
He doesn't like him personally. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. Monsieur Blanchet is of the mind that if he can't be Prime Minister of Canada, and he has no desire to be, because of Jagmeet Singh, Poilievre, and Trudeau, he much prefers
Yes.
Trudeau, a fellow
Well,
Quebecois.
this is the thing. This is the thing.
He knows that there's nothing in it for Quebecers if Pierre wins, and there's even less in it for it if Jagmeet Singh wins. But in a province that has a secularism bill, what are the odds that the majority of the population is going to vote for a prime minister that's wearing a turban? Let's be honest. And it's the second most populous province. So the NDP has a pretty steep slope to climb in that province with Jagmeet Singh as the leader. So, yeah, Monsieur Blanchet doesn't have much love for either of the two. Definitely prefers Trudeau over the other two. So he's not really in a rush to replace a Trudeau with a Poilievre because there's no way that that's going to be good for Quebec. Right. So I'm sure that Monsieur Blanchet would certainly love having a little more time to go by so that he can curb stomp Poilievre all he wants and maybe get a couple of assists from Trudeau and May and Singh along the way to try to diminish the popularity of that party in Quebec. Now let's see what else it says here. Another confidence motion risks pulling the plug on this parliament even sooner than that, spiking private members' bills like this one. The Senate's sober second thought on C-282 began long before Trump's return to the White House was confirmed, but his escalating trade threats may focus minds on the economic harm Canada may trigger for other industries by provoking American anger with another layer of dairy protections. Quote, I don't think C-282 has really been on the radar for many policymakers in Washington, D.C. beyond people who focus specifically on the U.S.-Canada relationship, said John Dickerman, the Business Council of Canada's Vice President for U.S. Policy. Quote, if that bill passes, that will change immediately, and I think it will cause widespread concern among policymakers in D.C. with responsibility for trade. Concern is probably too conservative a word to use there. It could possibly be an emergency for this U.S.-Canada relationship going forward, particularly in the context of how the mandatory review of the new free trade deal that was newly negotiated between Canada, the United States, and Mexico is looked at. Carlo Dade, the director for trade at the Canada West Foundation, recently returned from meetings with Trump campaign insiders in Washington and described the threat in even harsher terms. Quote, it's a red flag being waved at the table. You're unnecessarily putting a target on our back, he said. Well, maybe then you should have passed that earlier, senators, rather than dragging your heels for over a year.
You think?
Just saying. The Biden administration has triggered a series of disputes over the way Canada is administering the tariff-free dairy quotas under CUSMA to the benefit of its domestic processors. Quote, we pulled the fast one on the author of the deal, and now we've gone back to put it in legislation to keep our ill-gotten gains. That's a polite reading from the Americans. If you want to get out a bunch of four-letter words, you'll come closer to how they feel about this, Dade said. So it seems that we really, really did negotiate well the first time around with the current government.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. The Americans are going to demand concessions. Not only did we, in their perception, trick them by promising access that wasn't there under the first negotiation, then we turn around and we prevent correcting that mistake. New Zealand locked in a similar dispute over Canada's alleged non-compliance with the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, which opened Canada's dairy market to Pacific Rim partners. Quote, there are other countries that are going to jump in with the Americans, so for folks who are looking to win favor with the Americans, beating up on Canada may give them an easy leg up, Dade warned. Inu Manak, a trade expert with the Council on Foreign Relations, said current trade disputes are signs that under CUSMA, the system is not working to everyone's satisfaction. Quote, the Trump administration sees everything as transactional, right? And so for them, it would say, look, you have to put a stop to this, and they will call on the prime minister to do just that, she said. I think that the Trump administration would be very vocal about this. I think what we're getting to is a place where United States and Canada relations on trade are quite tense, but they're tense because both sides are sort of not willing to compromise anymore. So, supply management just got a little bit more complicated with the election of the new government south of us. And yes, those games that the senators played because it was a private member's bill in terms of not passing it sometime last year is now coming back to bite them on the tuki. Or on the tushy, I should say. There's a reason why you do things as quickly as possible while making sure that everything is thorough and meticulous. Because you never know what's around the corner that can upend stuff. So frustrating, these people. All right. Let's see what else do we have here. Yeah, that was the amendment of the bill. So I think that's most of the stuff with regards to Blanchet and the Bloc today. Do you have anything else, Mr. Grizzly?
There's a few things that were on the back burner here that I had considered bringing up, but I mean, I think I'd like to get David Wallace back on the show to have a little deeper discussion with him about his most recent tweet that I read to you earlier and what he knows, because I've been reading about this for a long time now. The intern who died while he was working for Pierre Poilievre, the $10,000 payoff. There's a lot of greasy, dark things that occurred there. I think the young man was only 23 when he passed away.
Okay.
So I'd like to get David Wallace on the show at some point to get a little bit more into the weeds on that. Without having some more of that information, I don't really want to delve into it too much. I'd like to have more information.
Yeah, I would like to get I'm very, very interested in that aspect of the story, but I know that we're also like just a small two-person thing, and even though we incorporated to make sure that we don't lose everything that we own, these types of conversations usually need to be vetted through a team of lawyers before we have them.
This is the thing. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. We would have David Wallace, and we would record the episode, and then we would have it, reviewed.
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, we would have to, but yes,
there's something there.
But yeah, we should probably try and see if we can do that.
Yes, there's what I'm saying is there's something there. There's something to it. He refuses to get his clearance. Michael Chong said something that was very incriminating, for want of a better term.
Right. When he made that comment
this story keeps coming back up again, right? So it's like,
yes,
there's smoke there, which leads me to believe there's a fire happening as well. And I really would like to get to the bottom of it as much as we possibly can, because Canadians need to know this, number one. And number two, the leader of the loyal leader of the opposition is compromised and is mixed up in strange circumstances surrounding the death of a young man, allegedly. If he is, I said if he's mixed up, allegedly he's mixed up. I don't, there's a lot of smoke there. There's a lot of smoke there, and Canadians need to know about this, because if this is the case, and if he is compromised by a foreign government, which we're all led to believe that he is, we know that India interfered with the leadership of the party. So yeah, there's a lot of dirt there, man, and people want to have this guy in power as prime minister.
Yeah. I'm right with you. I'm yeah.
Until somebody debunks these rumors or alleged stories, because you'll have people go, well, what about the 14-year-old girl? No, that's been debunked a million times. That never happened when it comes to Trudeau, and it never happened. And Poilievre even brought it up in the House of Commons once. It's like, excuse me?
Why did he really get fired from that account?
Yeah.
Brought it up obliquely, but diagonally, but he did.
He didn't get fired. He left. He left. He wasn't fired. He left. That's the thing. And they all these accusations, none of which have a scintilla of evidence to back it up.
Yes, and he left for reasons having nothing to do with what is being alleged.
Correct.
According to the actual director of the academy.
Correct.
So on the record, by the way.
Yes.
Now, there are two other stories that are going around that are somewhat a little related and still related to everything that we said a bit today earlier, if we're looking at the aspect of a government potentially falling or being made to fall by opposition parties in Parliament. This is from Rachel Aiello from CTV. Sparks flew at a parliamentary committee Thursday as MPs questioned Canada's Democratic Institutions Minister about a widely opposed provision in electoral reform legislation that seeks to delay the next fixed election date by 1 week. Testifying about Bill C-65, the Electoral Participation Act, Public Safety and Democratic Institutions Minister Dominic LeBlanc faced a barrage of questions about the government's proposal to move the next fixed election date from October 20th, 2025 to October 27th, 2025. The Liberals have said the One-Time Canada Election Act carve-out is to avoid conflicts with fall holidays, including Diwali, as well as local elections in Alberta. Though postponing the vote by even one day would also have the knock-on effect of securing pensions for 80 MPs first elected in 2019 who wouldn't otherwise qualify if they lose their seats before hitting their 6-year service mark on October 21st, 2025. By the way, kids and cubs, one of those MPs happens to be the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, and most of his caucus. If you will remember, when Yves-François Blanchet became the leader, right before that, the Bloc Québécois had a couple of years where they went through like 3 or 4 leaders in a very, very short amount of time and then tried to take a step towards the right instead of its traditional left. And that really did not work out for them. So they had only like 13 seats or something like that. And then Blanchet came in and got the seats back up. The Bloc was on the verge of being completely annihilated until Sachi Curl delivered the election to Blanchet in the last debate.
Correct.
Yes. They were nowhere. They were having a very hard time. And she basically gave them mouth to mouth during that debate. But yes, Blanchet himself and all his team also would not qualify for the pension if we went to an election on October 20th.
Correct.
But on October 21st, they do. Right now, the fixed election date is set for October 20th, and the federal government wants to push it back. And I'm sure the federal government also has a certain number of MPs that were elected in the 2019 election that would benefit from that as well. Mr. Singh benefits a little earlier than that because I believe it's in February that he becomes eligible. He's not
let's talk about that
affected
for a
by this
second.
one. But it's very interesting that for all the comments that are made about the Bloc Québécois, the NDP leader not wanting to do a damn thing until he gets his damn pension, particularly by Pierre Poilievre, who's had his for a long time, has absolutely nothing to say about the Bloc people getting their pensions, though.
Funny how that
because
is.
he needs votes in Quebec.
And he knows he won't get them. Here's the other thing, too. He talks about Jagmeet Singh's pension. Jagmeet Singh's pension is about $66,000. Pierre Poilievre's is about $230,000 indexed to inflation, so it just increases year over year as needed. Jagmeet Singh was independently wealthy before he ever got into government.
Right.
Jagmeet Singh doesn't need the pension. He doesn't need it. He's already got a lot of money. The man's rich. What you think you buy a Rolex on a
carry a Louis Vuitton bag?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He was independently wealthy before he ever got into office. And people get mad, well, he's got a Rolex. So I have an Omega. He had it before he got into office. He was a wealthy, successful lawyer. He has some
had enough
family money
for a
behind him too.
Rolex before he became an MP.
Before he's an MPP, before he ever got into government, he already had enough money to buy a Rolex first. So, when people say, how can he possibly, just because you have cash doesn't mean you don't care about others. That's the one thing, like I know wealthy people who actually give a damn. I know wealthy people who have been lifelong social democrats, for want of a better term, card-carrying members of the New Democratic Party of Canada. Wealthy. And they say, I think my taxes should be increased. I already have more than enough. Let's give some to others. There are people out there like that. The problem is our next door neighbor has a nation of people who are mine, which is what the Conservative Party of Canada is, the Reform Party. Me, I got mine, I don't give a shit about you.
Right.
The big difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives are the Liberals, it should never happen to anybody. And the Conservatives didn't happen to me, so I don't care.
Right. Exactly.
That's largely what it is if you sum it up right there. Another thing I read about this not too long, well, actually a few years ago, and I read it again recently, was that the Conservatives are always about, well, we can't give out this program because people might get it that don't need it. Oh, okay, so we're going to punish those who do need it because a few people who don't need it might get it. Whereas the Liberals are like, no, just feed everybody, man. Feed everybody. Right. Sure, there are people going to get it who don't need it, but we're going to help so many that need help.
Yep.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Yep, indeed. Now, while all opposition parties came out against the change, Minister Dominique Leblanc stated, quote, he will happily respect the will of the committee if it leaves the date as it stands. The provision appears unlikely to make it into the final version of the legislation. But it didn't stop the opposition MPs from challenging Leblanc about the change. During the hearing, Conservative MPs suggested the real motivation of the proposal was to protect the pensions of 22 Liberal and 6 NDP MPs, though the Conservatives have most MPs, 32 whose pensions would potentially be on the line. Yeah, sure, Conservatives. It's about the other guys.
Yeah.
Quote, whose idea was it to pad your pockets? Was it your idea? Was it the leader of the NDP's idea? Conservative MP Michael Cooper blocks during the Thursday meeting of the House of Commons Procedure and House Affairs Committee. LeBlanc replied by congratulating Cooper on asking a question he can use in a clip for social media and accused the Conservatives of displaying, quote, supreme arrogance and suggesting none of their MPs are at risk of being defeated. In many respects, the legislation was a co-production with the NDP tied to a now-defunct two-party supply and confidence pact, though Singh secured his seat in a 2019 federal by-election months before the general election, so his timing for securing a pension is not the same. During the hearing, Conservatives also questioned LeBlanc in meetings he had with top New Democrats in advance to the legislation being tabled. Quote, we just got information minutes before this meeting let's try that again. We just got information before this third time. We just got information minutes before this meeting start. In fact, of secret meetings that did take place, there was NDP headquarters representative that got a meeting with the Prime Minister's office, staff from your office, and Elections Canada to get information and briefings behind the scenes only revealed afterwards, Conservative MP Eric Duncan put to LeBlanc. And so LeBlanc replied by calling Duncan, quote, a very experienced sleuth for unveiling what he said were, quote, routine meetings of senior officials. You find it shocking that parliamentarians work together in a collaborative way. We think it's something that Canadians would find very positive, LeBlanc said. The Bloc Québécois also challenged LeBlanc on the fixed election date change provision of the bill and the potential for other calendar conflicts if the federal vote is moved back 1 week. There are 19 Bloc Québécois MPs, more than half their caucus, who could stand to secure pensions if there was an election later than presently scheduled. The Bloc leader, Yves-François Blanchet, had actually stated he's ready to help Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre bring Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's minority government down and prompt an early election, something LeBlanc pointed out in his response to Bloc MP Marlene Gill. Quote, I take note that you want an election right away, but irrespective of the date we choose, there's going to be tension, LeBlanc said in French. We are doing the best we can, and the good news is that the voters are very resilient. NDP MP Lisa Marie Barron confirmed Thursday that once the committee finalizes hearings from witnesses, she will propose an amendment during the clause-by-clause review to strike out the proposed date change. Noting the tenor of Thursday's hearing, Barron said she anticipates the acrimony over the so-called pension protections, which she called an unintended benefit, will, quote, be resolved. Liberal MP Sherry Raimondo told her colleagues that should an amendment be advanced to keep the current election date, she'd be prepared to support it. We've been focusing a lot on the date, but there's so many more important things, Raimondo said. The bill tabled in March also proposes a series of election law reforms aimed at making it easier for Canadians to vote and harder for bad actors to meddle. Government House Leader Karina Gold recently put a motion on notice seeking to expedite the committee's work and the subsequent rounds of common scrutiny should the current privileged filibuster that's stalling work in the House end. So there we go. Now, the other thing that goes with this is this side here. Are we going to have an election soon? Maybe not, because according to Christopher Nardi of the National Post, support for federal New Democrats in British Columbia and the Prairies is dropping at a concerning rate for leader Jagmeet Singh, a new poll suggests, despite recent gains by his provincial counterparts in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. The Post Media Léger poll finds that the NDP's popularity has dropped 2 percentage points nationally to 15%. That's almost annihilation. Since the last poll on September 30th, Conservatives remain at 42%, the Liberals are at 26%, a 1 point increase. The Bloc Québécois national support bumped up 2 points to 9%, translating to 36% popularity in Quebec. But digging deeper into regional variation shows a problematic trend for the federal NDP. The poll suggests the federal NDP support in British Columbia has fallen to 19%, a 10-point drop since late September, when it was at 29. It also shows the party losing 4 points in Manitoba and Saskatchewan Prairie region from 25 to 21%, and about half of the seats that the NDP currently has in Parliament come from British Columbia. So a 10-point drop makes it quite likely that Jagmeet Singh is probably the least enthusiastic of all the party leaders to go for an election now. I think Justin Trudeau would rather go now than Jagmeet Singh at the moment, and things aren't looking great for Mr. Trudeau either at the present moment. The NDP support remains unchanged in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic provinces. Quote, they have to do well in British Columbia, quite frankly. They have a lot of seats in that province, and they have a bit to be worried that the federal Tories are going to start encroaching into some of their areas. And that's a statement by Léger Vice President Andrew Enns. Enns said the drop is all the more remarkable given that the recent boosts in popularity for the provincial NDP parties, both Saskatchewan and Manitoba. In October 2023, the Manitoba NDP won government after nearly 11 years of progressive conservative rule. Last month, Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck led her party to its strongest showing in nearly 2 decades, winning 27 of the province's 61 ridings. In BC, the provincial NDP was able to win re-election with a thin majority last month, although it lost seats from the 2020 election. Enns says that Singh is likely pondering why those provincial NDP brands did relatively well while his federal brand is struggling. Because they don't like you. You're a bad leader, and the federal brand is different than the provincial brand, which is now progressive conservatism. And you have decided to make the entire identity of your party about what's going on in Palestine and Israel. Maybe that's why. The NDP and Jagmeet Singh had trouble connecting with Canadians for quite a while, Enns added. The new poll also suggests the rise in the Bloc Québécois popularity in Quebec suggests the party is eating into liberal and conservative support there. Quote, conservatives can't ignore that because they have between 10 to 12 seats that they want to continue to hold in Quebec, Enns said, and it obviously gets very difficult for them to grow that number if the Bloc Québécois keeps going up. But I also think that the Liberals have to be a little nervous about that as well, because that probably starts to put some of those suburban Montreal seats that the Liberals hold in play. The Liberals' fear is likely compounded by their by-election loss in the Montreal riding of LaSalle and Verdun to the Bloc in September. Still, over the last 4 months, polls are showing Liberal support slowly trending upward after roughly a year of stumbling, Enns said. That uptick has come largely at the expense of the NDP, while strong levels of conservative support have remained virtually untouched, which doesn't augur well for Jagmeet Singh because he took this big gamble thinking that it would help him replace the Liberals in the minds of Canadians as Canada's progressive option, and it seems that that has not happened. So again, questions about whether Mr. Singh will still be leader of the party come election are arising with this poll here.
I don't think he's going to survive it, to be honest with you.
I don't think so.
You know what it is? And one of the things that you and I have talked about on this program many times is the fact that he keeps pulling from the bottom of the Conservative Party deck of cards when it comes to politicking.
Yeah.
You know,
we
denying
campaigning like that.
Yeah,
we don't need to.
We don't need it. Why are you doing that? Constantly blaming Justin Trudeau for things that are responsible by provincial premiers, like healthcare. He does it all the time. And then blaming the prime minister for things that he has no say in the matter, like the price of groceries. Unless we nationalize the grocery chains or enact price controls to cap the costs of things, which is not going to happen.
Yeah.
That'll never happen. As much as I would like it to happen, it'll never happen, price caps, because too many powerful people in this country pull the puppet strings of our political powers. And like it or not, every single one of them is beholden to somebody else.
Indeed.
Every single one of them is beholden to a wealthy individual somewhere who is dictating, whispering in their ear what they want and don't want. I don't care who disagrees with me on that. It's a simple fact. Everybody is compromised to one degree or another, because to get to that position, you need to make deals with people. You need to make deals with people you wouldn't have a cup of coffee with just to get to that position sometimes, because they're the ones who have the power to put you in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this because I've had friends who've worked on the Hill. I have friends on the Hill now, and I've had former friends that are members of Parliament right now. We don't speak anymore for obvious reasons. And I remember years ago I was at a party, and a young man who was getting ready to start as a page because he was a political science student. We're at a party in August, and he's getting ready. I can't wait to get in there, and really I'm going to make a difference. And a year later, I saw him at the same party, and he was like, he looked 15 years older. He was jaded. The joy and the spark in his eyes was gone, because he saw what's really there and how it really works. And he recognized that when I had told him, I said, well, keep that spirit alive, but I think you're going to see some things that you're not going to like and you can't do anything about. And you'll discover people that you wouldn't have a cup of coffee with that you have to make deals with. He's like, no, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, okay, no problem. I was about 15 years older than him, so I understood it. And a year later, he was like, you were so right, dude. I'm like, I know how it works. I don't like it, but what can I do? I'm a working class stiff.
I take no pleasure in sharing this with you, but
No, I take no pleasure in sharing this with you. None. Zero. I wish it weren't like that, but it is. It is. They're all beholden to somebody else who is more powerful. And we don't even know who they are because they sit in the shadows. But they have all the money and all the power.
Yep. So, though the uptick in support for the Liberals is coming largely at the expense of the NDP, while strong levels of Conservative support have remained virtually untouched, quote, the Liberals don't seem to be at this stage of the game chipping away at any sort of Conservative voters, which at some point has got to start to happen if the Liberals want to stay in government. If you're the Prime Minister, you're not out of the woods by any stretch, but if nothing else, it probably bolsters the Prime Minister's message to his caucus that, look, we are making progress. There remains, quote, significant dissatisfaction with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, the poll shows. Only 27% of respondents said that they were satisfied with the current Liberal government, while 68% said that they were dissatisfied. The polling was done between November 1st and 3rd with a sample of 1,549 Canadians via an online panel. While margins of error can't be applied to online panels, the probability sample of this size would be plus or minus 2.44% 19 times out of 20. Now, this also presents something that's very interesting as a situation because there are some lessons if we look at what happened in the United States recently and we look at this and we look at the state of where people are, the parties are in Canada with regard to polls. There seems to be a message going out there that the issues that are considered more left, like, for example, protecting trans rights, the Israel-Palestine issue, all that type of stuff, while they are very important to the populations that are directly concerned by them, are issues that are not rating at all with the electorate. In particular, if we're looking at the United States, right, majority white electorate, and the specific portion of the electorate that is not college educated. Why are you talking about trans rights that affect 0.1% of the rather about like how I can afford my dinner or pay my rent or so if the Liberals do want to win the next time around, while childcare is nice and pharmacare is nice and trans rights are vital and doing right by what's going on in the Middle East so that the greatest number of innocent civilians, regardless on which side of the border that they live, can actually continue to live and could actually even maybe prosper and thrive. It's of little concern to anyone that's going to the voting booth. They want to pay their rent, they want to pay their mortgage, they want to be able to get a home, they want to be able to buy food, they want to be able to cover healthcare and education costs. And that's pretty much all they're focused on right now. So the Liberals have to try to find a way to pivot away from those issues that all the Conservatives keep on saying are virtue signaling. Not that they're important. They're not important. They're still important. They still need to be in the platform. You still need to act on them, environment and all that kind of stuff. But what they really need to put forward and talk about all the time is not about how Pierre is unacceptable and how Pierre is no good and how Pierre will destroy the country, but on what their actual offer is to make your life more affordable. And anytime talking about anything other than that, people are not receptive. It's not receptive. So if the Liberal Party has some progressive conservative bona fides, like Wab Kinew had, like Carla Beck had, and like David Eby had, and even like Susan Holt has, they're not going to go anywhere. They need to present an economic agenda that's specifically focused on the kitchen table and focused on rural Canada and focused on single young men.
Oh, agreed.
That's the path forward. Again, for those who have other issues, who would like to be front and center, it's probably not great for you because you're not going to hear about what it is that you want to talk about. But if you want a government next time around, after the next election, that will not systematically destroy everything that is Canadian about Canada,
Mm-hmm.
then we got to start talking about money.
Well, speaking of money, did you know for the first time since, let's see, the first time in a few
It's got to be
years
nothing
now.
else going on but the rent.
Well, the rent has gone down.
Yes.
Average asking rents declined nationally on a year-over-year basis for the first time in more than 3 years in October, said a report out Thursday. The report from Rentals.ca and Urban Nation found average asking rents across Canada sat at $2,152 in October, down 1.2% from the same month in 2023, the first national decrease since July 2021. The decline is mainly concentrated in Canada's major urban centres, with cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal seeing rent decreases. This is good news because the rent is too damn high.
Yes.
I mean, the rent is too damn high.
Mm-hmm.
I can afford to stay where I am only because I've been here 14 years and
Yep.
it's rent controlled.
Yep.
Because the building was built in 1959. But if the building was built in 2019, they can jack it as high as they want because Doug Ford said so.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And fortunately, with the lowering interest rates, hopefully cost of living in terms of lodging will become much more expensive. Yesterday in the United States, the U.S. Fed dropped its rate by 25 basis points. One more time. In Canada, people are there's one more rate cut, I believe, in December before the end of the year. And still the markets seem to be suggesting that in Canada, it might be a 50%, 0.5% cut again there. I'm not so sure about that one. Right now. I'm still leaning more on the 25 there as well, because 50 would give us yet another quarter percentage gap with the United States, and I think that we're trying not to have that much bigger of a gap. But it will depend on economic numbers coming in, because the U.S. job report that came in last time, even though it was positive in terms of the numbers, was way, way, way lower than people had expected. So, and especially if we are looking at the potential beginnings of another inflationary period and potentially a recession coming our way with President Trump. So I'm not sure how much distance between the United States that the Bank of Canada wants to cover, but economically, there definitely is a case for the Bank of Canada to go a full 50 this time around,
Well,
because
so
we're still behind the curve.
as per this report, city by city, Toronto recorded the largest annual decline in asking rents for apartments in October. Just a second here. There it is. All right, I'm just going to drag that over here so it's easier to read. Toronto recorded the largest annual decline in asking rents for apartments in October at 9.2% to reach an average of $2,642. Vancouver saw an 8.4% year-over-year rent decline to an average of $2,945. Yikes. While Calgary apartment rents fell 4.7% to $1,995. In Montreal, average rents were down 2.9% at $1,987. Ottawa apartment rents held steady with a 0.4% annual increase to reach $2,207. Of course, Ottawa went up.
Yes. Well,
of course,
we're a
it
rather
did.
recession-proof city. So.
It really is, right? I mean, even when the recession hits hard, the federal government tends to spend on local businesses that serve the nation's capital and the nation, because you have to understand there's an awful lot of IT industry in this city.
Yeah,
this is Silicon Valley North for a reason, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Canada is built on IT, basically. So,
pretty much.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there's other industries in this city, of course. There's people, nobody manufactures anything. I'll go, what, drywall, nails, tools? Where do you think that comes from? We manufacture that stuff here.
Yeah. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
I believe we do.
All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Now, remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us because we love it when you do. Now, if you'd like to support us in other ways, like for example, trying to make sure that you don't miss an episode, well, you don't have to because we have the Ray Girl who has sponsored our pod page. You go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words, either using those lovely digits on those lovely hands or your voice prompt command to do so, or you scan the QR code that just appeared under my chin. That will bring you right there. And when you go to our pod page and click subscribe, that way, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. And again, to our audio listeners, I'm so sorry. I had managed to get us exactly caught up so that you were on the date, and then I got sick. And I did nothing. So I'm back a couple of episodes behind again, but I will get you caught up. Thank you again for your patience. I literally, the day after I got caught up, I got sick. So, so I still have some extra work to do, but I will get you your episodes, I promise. If you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have some buttons for you. If you click them, the like button, the share button, and the subscribe button, well, that gets us a whole lot of happy. And well, of course, we know that you love to make us happy. So thank you so much for doing so. We really appreciate it. Plus, it really helps us, get to more visibility and all that good stuff, which helps us generate income. So we thank for your help. Now, if you would like to help us generate income a little more directly, then you can scan that QR code that's by Mr. Grizzly's head, and that will bring you to our tip jar at our coffee page. That's coffeeko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. Lowercase letters, all in one word. If you go there, you will find our tip jar. If you can leave us a little contribution there, we would be very, very, very grateful because we do incur costs to bring this show to you. And any help that we could get with writing those off would be quite appreciated. So thank you for your consistent generosity. We are very, very grateful for it. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please don't worry because the gift of your participation is the one that matters the most to us. And we want to hear from you. So please write to us at TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com, on our Twitter feed at TrueEager, at our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver. And if you're listening on YouTube, right down here in our comments section, we do try to read everything, even though we can't answer everything. Then please, if you do have people in your family, you yourself, some friends who served in our armed forces, and you would like to give them a shout out or thank them for their service for our Remembrance Day special, or you would like to tell us what it is that Remembrance Day means to you and why it is that you observe it, please do tell us what it is by sending us a short message at TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com, and we will read them into our Remembrance Day special and activities and all that kind of stuff. So please do write to us and let us know what this means to you. It's very important to us, and we would like to be able to share your thoughts with our entire community. All right? Thanks for all your help with that. Because democracy is something that you do. If you are in Nova Scotia, please plan your vote. It would be really nice if we could flip one more province. And I know that there is a lot of dissatisfaction with Mr. Houston from the progressive sides, but I know the progressive side kind of has to determine whether or not they are going to support the Liberals or the NDP right now. It still seems to be a battle to figure which one will be the alternative of choice at the moment. But hopefully you will figure that out soon and then all coalesce around it in order to get rid of another conservative government that is severely underperforming expectations. It can be a tough world out there, kids and cubs, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
I don't know if these are directly words of wisdom, but Uncover the News, I have a caption on the screen. It says, "I wonder what is going to happen when the U.S. refugees start to come in." You know what? For the first time in our history, we might actually have refugees from the United States of America.
Yep.
And accept them, because if you are gay or trans or a documented immigrant, like, we're about to see some serious blowback. I've already seen pictures of individuals on college campuses saying, "Your body, my choice."
Forever.
Yeah. I've
I've
already
seen
seen that.
Yep.
It's like, do they know what they did by electing this man? I'm also reading lots of stuff about he cheated. There's the fixes. I'm like, okay, settle down about that. Okay, I don't want to get into the conspiracy waters on that. There are votes still to be counted. There's still things going on, and yes, if there's any sort of malfeasance, there will be an investigation. I mean, Rachel Maddow kind of chummed the waters on that one, but then again, it was his own words. We don't need any more votes. We have all the votes. We're good. We have all the votes. Don't worry. Just vote for us one time. You won't ever have to do it again. I'm like, what? I don't know if there's anything to the steal in this case. I really don't. And I don't even want to get into the conspiratorial waters on that. If there's any malfeasance, the investigation will take place. They will dig it up. But in the meantime, we may very well, for the first time in our history as a nation, have refugees from the United States of America, because their life could be very much in danger or jeopardy due to the fact that there's some pretty dangerous rhetoric going on in that country right now.
Yep, there is. I've seen a couple of things since the election that are, if the people actually meant them, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, exactly. There's some scary things happening right now. What? Oh, ow. Why do you have to put your paw right there, sweetheart? Every time, never fails. I love you, but please get better aim. My God, I have legs. Put your paw there. Not. Yeah, thank you. Okay, just a minute. Oh, she needs to go to the thing and do the
yes.
So
Mademoiselle Lola needs attention.
Yes, she does.
Mr. Grizzly, I think it is time to cue the cock.
I believe you are correct, sir.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
We haven't got time to get into this today, but I did want to show you a photograph I shot just yesterday, the day before. I can't remember when I shot this. Walking down Elgin Street while I was out with Lola. And this is a truck, an LED cube van. So it's got LED video screens on the sides and the back. Ottawa's energy production cap will tell the feds to scrap the cap, Alberta. And it had the alberta.ca at the bottom. You can't see it there. I had to crop the photo to take out people and license plate numbers and that, but and the entire board of AIMCO, which is what Daniel Smith wants to use to run the Alberta pension plan, they just fired the entire board. So they want to get out of the CPP to start an APP from a board that has lost billions.
Yeah, I know.
I can't make it up.
I'm listening to some stuff because the latest episodes, by the way, if you're from Alberta or interested in all things Alberta, the latest episodes from our friend Nate Pike at the Breakdown Alberta.
Holy shit.
Please go check them out, the last 2 or 3. There are lots of revelations about Skybox Smith, and there's a lot of revelations about what's going on with how a lot of this new rights stuff is a lot of smoke and mirrors once you start getting into the details of the actual wording in the fine print. So I'm listening to that and taking some notes, and hopefully we'll bring that to you over the next few days. But Holy crap.
Yeah.
By the way, we didn't report on it, but she survived her leadership review with 91.5% of the vote, which makes it kind of obvious that she had no need whatsoever to throw trans kids under the bus. So she just did it for shits and giggles.
Well, and that 91.5% was only people she allowed to come in and vote on it, apparently.
Well, yes, indeed. As an Easter egg for you kids and cubs, I bring some good news about Canadians who make us proud. Number one, and these are all tennis players. Gabrielle Dabrowski, who is was Canada's best tennis player in doubles on the female side, top 5 in the world, is playing in the actual tour finals right now. At the end of the year, the top 8 doubles teams get together for a tournament where they play against each other, and Dabrowski with her partner Aaron Routliffe of New Zealand finished first in pool play and are currently playing their semifinal right now. And right now it's a close game. They're in the first set and they're tied 6-6 in a tiebreaker. So far losing the tiebreaker 3-1. Also, Denis Shapovalov, who has had a very, very, very rough year last year and this year. He had gotten all the way up to 10 in the world and then dropped out of the top 100 with injuries and just bad play and lack of confidence. Things have been picking up around the end of the year, and he's now really back into the top 100 solidly, and maybe has an opportunity to get into the top 60 with a couple of more wins this week, but he managed to get himself to the semifinal of a tournament in Belgrade. So he's coming back slowly and surely, which is nice because we've missed him over the past year. And Rebecca Marino, who also has had a very tough year because she had climbed up to number 38 in the world and also dropped out of the top 100 and is trying to get herself back in there. She's at about 112 right now. Had a great come from behind win yesterday. She was down 5-2 in the third set and then turned it around in order to keep advancing at a tournament that is going on in Midland in the United States, looking for a good result there to get her closer to the top 100, because that means immediate and automatic acceptance into the Australian Open, which will be there in January. So there's a lot of people at this time of the year that are trying to get extra ranking points to make sure that they don't miss the tournament, and she is one of them. So great performance. And then again, all our up and coming juniors and new professional players that, the ones that are like lower in the rankings, between 200 and 300 and even lower, between 300 and 1,000. There's several of them that over the past like 2-3 months have just been tearing it up. There were people that weren't even ranked in the top 1,000 at all, that all of a sudden are now like in the top 700 of the world, and they just came out of nowhere. So there's a lot of names coming up in Canadian tennis that you're going to be hearing a lot about over the next 2 or 3 years, Canadians, and I am following them for you so that you can hear about them before you actually hear about them on TV. But our program is doing really, really, really well. And we have to send some congratulations and good luck to our female tennis team, who's going to be competing in the Davis, not the Davis Cup, the Billie Jean King Cup, trying to defend their title. Bianca Andreescu will not be competing this time around, but Marina Stukicic, who was instrumental in our win last time, will be returning. And for the men's side, it will be the week after that. It seems that Felix Auger-Aliassime will not be competing in that one. Milos Raonic will be coming back. But since Milos was announced, Gabriel Diallo has lifted himself into the top 100 in the world in men's. So maybe he'll be playing a couple of singles matches too. So it'll be interesting to see if the Canadians are able to either defend their title in the case of the women, or get back to a higher level after the Canadian men lost their title last year. But they're both still in it, so go Canada, go. All right, that's all I got. We'll see. Have a beaverific weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. And it looks like we will have a pubcast.
Yes, we'll have a pubcast tomorrow. And
so we'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
No politics, just pub chat.
Welcome to the place where everyone knows your name, where everyone's your friend, where good times are had by all. Sit back, relax, pour yourself a beverage and enjoy our company. I know we'll certainly enjoy yours. Welcome to the True North Eager Beaver Pubcast. Once a month, we gather at the Lieutenant's Pump at 361 Elgin Street in downtown Ottawa, Canada's capital city, bringing you joy and happiness all day long.